Welcome back, DIVEBOMB IndyCar podcast, and we've been waiting for this moment a very, very, very long time in 2025. We're 7 months into the season now when we finally have a winner who is not named Álex Palou or Carl Kirkwood. Scott Dixon won the Under Indy 200 at Mid-Ohio, so we finally have a different winner to speak about. We didn't think we would until about 5 laps to go at Mid-Ohio. I'm very glad we can have a podcast of a bit of positivity for once this season. We've been struggling that at times, so nice to have somebody else in victory lane this season. Álex Palou will be absolutely furious at himself that he wasn't in victory lane, but we'll touch on it a little bit later. But anyway, you didn't watch the race, Archie, you traitor, going to watch this Formula 1 nonsense. So what's your reaction to this?
Well, I actually did watch more of the race than you did, because you didn't watch the first half of the race, and while I didn't watch it live, I actually watched the entire race. Wow. Well, part of it before I was in the car, and then some of it in the car, because I went to Silverstone with my family for the British Grand Prix. I think I can be excused missing one race weekend in the season and still catching up on absolutely everything bar warm-up and second practice. That was the bits I'd not seen, but I do intend to even watch them while I'm doing some post-weekend writing now that I'm
going to watch warm-up.
I love the warm-up show.
Okay, but you're going to watch second practice?
But it's just background noise when I'm writing.
I don't think anyone has ever looked forward to watching second practice.
Hey, I need to keep up having watched every single session this season.
Okay. Is this including Indy Next as well, or?
I'm not. I watched the Indy Next race. I've been doing well on that though. I've been watching Indy Next practice as well through the season. But it was interesting because while I was at the track, I didn't have any signal, so I'd occasionally get some signal, and I could check Twitter and see what everyone was saying. And yeah, the most alarming thing was when there was the big crash in the Indy Next race, and Sebastian Murray did a vertical flip. That was quite alarming to see. But it was like, other than that, it was kind of just watching live timing, and just, I don't know, it took me back to like my childhood before I would watch loads of football or soccer, as you Americans listening would say.
Let's not even give them that credit. It's football.
Good. Yes, it is football. But like when I was a kid watching football, and maybe before I had like Sky Sports or was that invested, I always just found it really cool just looking at the scores on BBC Sports at the end of the game and saying, oh, this is what happened. It kind of felt a bit like that. Especially like I followed the end of qualifying on live timing, but the race was kind of just, the occasional Twitter notification. But you say like it's a relief that we've got another winner, and we want that variation. It feels a little bit anticlimactic that it's the second winningest driver ever that's done it. Do you not think?
And another Ganassi.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, it was the second race in a row. He seemed to have Dixon on a bit of a crazy. This wasn't as crazy road America, but Dixon on a unfavored strategy, trying to stretch out and fuel, and Palou taking the more conventional one from the front. And this has been Álex Palou's weekend. He took pole. There was no doubts he was going to take pole, and he pretty much led start to finish bar his pit cycles. And there was always Dixon's a factor here, but Palou, he's just so good in the black tyres that he's always going to run away at the start of his stints. There was obviously a bit of a danger zone for him coming to the final stop. Would Palou be caught out by a caution? Made the wise decision to try and eliminate that possibility. And he comes out ahead of Dixon, fresher tyres, better fuel situation, and you think, all right, this is prime Palou territory. The most uncharacteristic Palou mistake, going off at turn 9 all by himself. Obviously, pretty much hands the win to Dixon. Palou almost got him back, in fairness, but there was very little opportunity from that point onwards. So, it's, you want to give credit to Dixon. I think we will do that in a minute. But the story is the most unlikely of mistakes from Álex Palou, and it says a lot about Palou, the fact we cannot ever recall him making a mistake of this magnitude. And I know he's won 6 races of the season, but this one is going to really, really sting for a very, very long time. He threw it away all by himself in a far better situation, and he's got nobody else to blame. He's still got over 100 points gap in the standings. He extended his championship lead still, and relatively, it was still a very good weekend for Palou, but I'm sure he's going to be a bit frustrated at the fact that was a win which he let go.
you say it's going to sting for a while. I think he actually said in the press conference after the race that, I mean, it might take a couple of hours to get over, but because he has this lead in the championship and it's been this season that, well, this just ridiculous season, then it will soften the blow a little bit. But I think it probably does say all you need to know about the year that he has had, that there is this kind of tint of disappointment leaving a weekend with pole in second place and 113-point lead in the championship. But he did genuinely look a bit gutted, but obviously still a very strong weekend. I mean, pole position again. He's still the only multiple pole sitter this season, and I feel like he just continues to level up in terms of pure pace, which is the one thing he really earmarks as a weakness coming into this year. And yeah, it was just very rare scruffiness, particularly with that error late in the race to let Dixon pass, of course. I mean, I think he had like a 4-second lead at that point, so it lost him a heck of a lot of time. But I mean, I guess it shows nobody's immune to mistakes. I think Lundgaard said that something about him being Mr. Perfect, even making mistakes, which is kind of true, because Palou's about as close to perfect as we've seen and as you can get, and even he's still making an error. But he also made a mistake kind of just before his penultimate stop of the race. He dropped the wheel, lost about 1.5 seconds when he was pushing just to make gains on Dixon to ensure he came out with a decent gap ahead of him. But I think, I don't know, that I was going to call them unforced errors, but I feel like the Dixon factor of it all means it's not kind of directly an unforced mistake. And you know, the first one, as I say, he was pushing hard to get that gap, and the second, okay, Dixon was quite a bit behind, but he was still kind of looming. But still, you don't see that usually from Palou. And yeah, I mean, he had fresher tires, he was in a better fuel situation, and those kind of controlling positions, I feel like he's just so good at converting from usually. And I mean, the gap was building and building, and you know, he flushed his lines. There's no other way about it. And yeah, there was still 5 laps to go at that point, but it just seemed like it was really difficult to pass, even with Dixon on worse tires and a worse fuel situation. And yeah, I mean, overall, it's just amazing that I feel like a disaster for Palou is the only consequence being dropping to second place. Like, I mean, it's just a case of really being ever so slightly less ridiculously record breaking, I guess. But he did hand this one to Dixon, and I don't feel like you can often say that about Álex Palou. And no more talk of this 100% winning record on road courses this year, which, I mean, felt like it was genuinely on the cards. We've spoken a lot about that, but yeah, I mean, he's still got a major lead in the championship, which has got to ease the pain over 2 races. And suddenly we only have 7 races left. Suddenly this time next week, we're going to have 5 races left. And I'm really quite sad about that, because obviously we have the Iowa doubleheader coming up. And I mean, soon we're going to be talking about when can he win it, really, if there's not an absolute nightmare over the Iowa doubleheader.
I think we need to give some credit to Dixon, though, because Palou came out in that final stint, and he should have really just ran away with it. Fresher tyres, didn't need to save, clean air. And Dixon held his own. You know, he was always 1.5, 2 seconds behind. Okay, he fell off a little bit pace-wise, but he kept himself in the equation. And that's what Dixon does so well. And that's why it's got so many results this year. And I mean, credit to Dixon for trying the 2-stop. I think not many people did that. Rosenqvist was the next one to do that, and he finished 6th. And you know, Scott Dixon loves to do this. This is his speciality, trying the ridiculous strategies that nobody else wants to attempt. And you know, of course, he's going to go from the strategy, even though he started in the midfield today rather than like Road America was right at the back. Of course, he was going to go for it. This is a bit more conventional than what he tried to do Road America, in fairness, but he's the one who will make this work, and he is so ever so reliable in making sure that it does work when it comes to strategy. And as I said, he kept Palou honest in the final stint. Palou was always going to extend his lead, but Dixon didn't make it too easy. And did he force Palou into mistake? No, I mean, fundamentally, it was still Palou's own mistake he made by himself. But Dixon was still there to capitalise, because, you know, if Dixon, when Palou came ahead, could have just taken his foot off the gas. Okay, I'm going to bring this home. And Palou still could have won if that was the case. I mean, a second or two bigger a gap, Palou probably would have got away with it. So fair play to Dixon. His first win since early on last year. His last win was in Detroit last year, I believe. So obviously it's quite a barren run for him. And Yeah, it's been a bit of a weird season. We've discussed a couple of times for Dixon, but it's finally a more usual result. He continues to close the gap to AJ Foyt at the top of the IndyCar record book. So whether that's still in the cards remains to be seen. That seems something which is going to go right down to the end of Dixon's career. But a really good victory. It's hard to say because it's not that Dixon won the race, it's Palou lost the race. But credit where credit is due to Dixon. He performed the strategy excellently, and he kept Palou honest in that final stint.
I would argue that it's kind of both. Like, okay, Palou lost it with his mistake, but also a huge part of racing is not making mistakes. And owing to Dixon not making a mistake, he was in position to capitalise and to win the race, I would say. Interesting point you raised actually about Palou. If he was a second or two further up the road, he probably would have got away with it. I mean, that was this time he lost for this first little moment before the penultimate stop. He also got stuck behind Stingray Rob before his final stop. So all these little things that we don't usually see go awry seem to go awry. But I mean, I think the angle really from a Dixon side is just the longevity that it continues to kind of prove, really. I mean, he's in a very rare bracket for that. Wins in 21 successive seasons now. He's won in 23 separate seasons. And it's not just longevity in that kind of basic sense. This is a guy who's been at the top, at the very top, in such a competitive championship for over 2 decades. And, you know, this year especially, and kind of in this latter stage of his career, we may not see the raw speed against others in the field, and that's never really been Dixon. But I feel like just the nous that he has in such abundance is, I mean, it just continues to pay off because, I mean, this was a pretty big one for him because it still shows that he can stand up to the youngsters. He can stand up to Palou even in the height of this season that he's having, becoming this great and still getting better. And okay, maybe he can't beat Palou in a straight fight, but let's be frank, nobody can, and you have to be inventive to beat Palou, and nobody is better at being inventive, I don't feel, than Scott Dixon. And yeah, as you say, he was the only 2-stopper in the top 5. That was kind of, I know some drivers were saying they thought the race was going to be a 2-stopper. It ended up really, for the most part, being a 3-stopper, especially for, you know, the lead drivers, bar Dixon, who obviously is the master at making things that aren't supposed to work. But yeah, it was just kind of that classic. I mean, start of the race, he was kind of just lurking back in that back end of the top 10, but you got the sense from really early on that it was kind of a, you know, he was primed for this classic Dixon drive. And on the face of things, it was like, okay, Álex Palou's in control over Christian Lundgaard, but the Dixon factor just, I think it put Palou under threat, and maybe it did cause a little bit of over pushing subconsciously, consciously, I don't know, but yeah, it's the second race in a row where we've really seen Dixon. I know, obviously, even more so Road America because he started at the back, but where he's been prepared to really roll the dice to challenge Palou. And I feel like Palou's really forced everyone into this kind of almost unusual gung-ho mindset. We don't care if we throw it away. We just want to win races. And I don't buy that a win in this circumstance is lucky, just for the fact that, you know, avoiding mistakes is part of the game. And okay, you know, Dixon was fortunate that Palou made that mistake, but, you know, he stayed mistake-free, and that won him the race. And yeah, Palou made the mistake at the end of the day. I just thought it was really nice scenes at the end as well with his son Kit. Was first time he'd watched his dad win a race in person, and I can't go over how happy he looked. That was such a kind of feel-good thing. So yeah, short and curlies of that. It was a bit lucky, maybe, but I ultimately feel like Dixon won that race. I don't think it was just a case of Palou losing it.
Let's round off Chip Ganassi Racing because this was easily the best weekend of Kieran Simpson's IndyCar career. I said this last week quite passionately. Maybe that's the wrong word, but I made a big statement last week saying I thought Kieran Simpson was having a really good season, and it wasn't being taken note of. And road courses especially, Simpson is making incredible progress, I should say. We saw that at Indianapolis road course in particular. Obviously got a bit fortunate there. Road America last time out, he was strung out as well. So he obviously qualified third, only behind Lundgaard and Palou. He could have well been in the mix for a top 3 all day. Had he not stalled in his final stop when he was just a couple of seconds down the road from Dixon, and then earned himself a drive-through for hitting Rinus VK's crew member, would have easily been a podium. So Feel a bit bad for Simpson because it's just the tiniest of errors has cost him a really, really strong result. It could have well been a Ganassi 1-2-3, and I know he will be disappointed, but I thought, like, all things considered, last year a 10th place would have been an excellent result for Simpson. 10th place is such a disappointing result this time out, which I think says a lot about Kevin Simpson's development. And I did say last week, I think he was having a superb season. He continues to prove that. So, there was a lot of doubts about Simpson. He did not have a great rookie season. There's no hiding from that. However, his development in year 2 has been superb. He's qualifying not miles off Dixon on several occasions. I mean, he comes about qualified Dixon this weekend. And even in race trim, he was there or thereabouts. He also was on a 3-stopper as well, actually. Sorry, a 2-stopper as well. And just a few seconds behind Dixon. So, if these things turn out slightly differently, that's a 1-2-3 for Ganassi. So, good weekend for Simpson. Like Palou, I think he'll be kicking himself a little bit, but a weekend to be proud of.
As you say, it's a big sign of progress that 10th is now a disappointing result for him. And I think, it shows what a great day he was having, that he had the stall in the pits, he had the drive-through penalty for hitting Rinus VK's crew member, very gently running over his toes, which was an absurd sight, to be quite honest. But he had all of that and still finished 10th, which, obviously showed what a day he was having. And I think the qualifying third aspect of it is big because, people might look at some of Simpson's better results this year and say, oh, circumstance this, circumstance that. Got a little bit fortunate with this and that and what have you, but this was raw pace, and I think it's a massive sign of his improvement from last year when he was qualifying in the 20s. I think we figured all bar Road America that funny wet dry session. Race start he was up to second. He didn't hold on to that for long, but in that opening stint he held on to the podium position very nicely, really, and he just got passed by Herter. I don't know whether he made a mistake or what have you, but lost several positions there, and that's when it kind of snowballed a little from that podium position. But he was seeming to kind of recover quite nicely at the time of obviously the stall and the penalty. But he's obviously still unpolished. He's still so young. I don't think people can really lose sight of that. But there's so much to be positive about from Kiffin Simpson's standpoint, and he's really dispelling some doubts, I feel.
Archie, you ready for this week's segment of Penske disasters?
It is a weekly thing, isn't it?
It is a weekly
obscene
thing, isn't it? It is. Who thought a year ago we've been having a weekly, emphasis on weekly segment on Penske disasters? And this week was maybe one of the worst disasters we've seen. The highest finishing car was in 23rd. And Penske, before this weekend, had the joint most wins of any team at Mid-Ohio. They ended their barren run in 2021, which you've spoken about a few times when you've gone and won here. McLaughlin won here a couple of years ago. Power's gone well here. And it felt like a chance for them to turn their season around because this is a decent track for them. And once again, they are nowhere. No cars in the fast 12. Once again, Newgarden was top qualifier in 18th position, which is ludicrous. And then Newgarden has... People are calling it a failure, which I'm not going to disagree with, but a bizarre accident on the opening lap where he loses it all by himself under braking, some rear brake issue. Power has an engine failure after about 10 laps. So that's 2 cars gone in 10 laps. And then McLaughlin,
he had a tyre delaminate. That's what the team's press release quote said.
Okay, fine. So basically mechanical issues, seemingly, of some kind, on all 3 cars, and the top Penske is 23rd. And it's not like a case of, they had a real promise all weekend and they just got unlucky once again, mechanical failures, like the case was in Gateway. They were just off the ball once again, and it's not become a recurring worry theme. It is a recurringly worrying theme. This is every weekend now where Team Penske are, oh my goodness, what's going on? They've had yet another disaster, and 3 podiums across 3 cars, 10 races into the season is so unlike the Penske we're used to. They just seem like a shadow of themselves. They're like a midfield team at the minute. They're not, apart from McLaughlin, they're not qualifying particularly well on road and street courses. They're not executing, they're executing horrendously, is the best way of putting it. Newgarden's retired in his last 3 races, all for various different reasons. Power's retired in 2 of his last 3 races. McLaughlin hasn't finished in the top 10 since the Indy GP. I mean, they haven't had a single car in the top 10 since Detroit. It's just a terrible run of form. And every weekend, okay, this is going to be where the fortunes turn around. And it just gets even worse.
I think I saw they have 10 DNFs in 10 races. That's insane. That obviously it's not one car a race, but that evens out at one car in every race retiring, which is absolutely nuts. And Joseph Newgarden is 19th in the standings. 19th.
He's behind Connor Daly.
Yeah, the 2 and the 28 of Marcus Ericsson, who we might get onto in a bit, they're on 19th and 20th, and they're genuinely on the cusp of the leaders' circle if things keep going so astray, which is bonkers. But from a Penske standpoint, they're all slumping. I mean, Power's still the best place, but he's 9th in points, and McLaughlin's now dropped out of the top 10, and it's just so alarming on a team-wide scale. I mean, 3 races since they recorded a top 10 full stop. 4 of the last 5 races, they've not got a top 10. I saw Tony DeZino on Twitter tweeted that between 2018 and 2024, they had only 3 races without a car in the top 10. That's a 6-year period. They did have 4 cars for some of that, but still, the point kind of stands there. And I mean, this weekend, it kind of again was a microcosm of the wider season. I mean, execution problems again. I know a lot of the qualifying issues were put down to traffic, and ultimately that comes down to the team having to time it better. I would say at least part of it. Not saying it all is, but we again saw blunders. I mean, I don't know whether to call Newgarden's race start thing a blunder because it did look horrifically unusual, I must say. But again, general absence of speed as well. That obviously will have fed into qualifying. I know Will Power particularly had just said after qualifying he'd been struggling all weekend for pace, but you had that kind of dose of mystery as well with the whole McLaughlin thing. I mean, even before he had this tire delamination on one of the late stints, I mean, he was never really in contention. And even without that issue, I mean, he still would have been maximum lower top 10. And yeah, that was obviously topped off, well, in between, Newgarden's problem, McLaughlin's tire issue with that Morris fortune for Power. So yeah, I mean, it's been an insanely abnormal amount of issues out of their control. I mean, I just can't quite believe it, to be honest. It's absolutely nuts how much is going wrong, and it's hard to know how hard to come down on them because obviously some of it's self-inflicted and they are not performing at their usual standard, but so much of it hasn't been self-inflicted that it's kind of comical, really.
Okay, here's a stat for you. Between 2017 and 2020, Joseph Newgarden had no finishes outside the top 20. Between 2017 and 2023, Joseph Newgarden had 7 finishes outside the top 20. In 24 and 2025, in a season and a half, Newgarden has 9 finishes outside the top 20. And again, this one didn't seem like his fault, but it doesn't seem like the issue's been diagnosed either. So it's still a bit of a mystery into what's happened there. But as you say, it doesn't seem like their fault, but you don't have Ganassi getting these issues every single week, and you don't have Andretti getting these issues every week. Why are Penske just getting these issues? It's all the attenuators. The removal of that sealant has made no, I'm joking. I'm not going to do it on the podcast, but yeah, it's bizarre. I mean, between the 3 cars to have, especially in the last 3 races, for them all to have such different problems is odd, really odd. And again, you could probably excuse it if they were qualifying really well, they were running well, and it looked like they were in the mix for a podium and the victory. But I can't really recall a single race this year where Penske really were in the fight. I mean, Newgarden maybe at St. Petersburg and the Indy 500 maybe was a bit of a question mark. But other than that, it hasn't felt like a Penske's been close to victory in 2025.
Gateway, obviously. And I think Iowa's going to be big.
I don't know why it's like, yes, Gateway, quite obviously as well, yes.
But you're right. Like, it's been a very anonymous season in many ways. Like, yeah, they've just not really been up there, have they? Like, even when they are having these issues, it's not like they're having these issues, obviously, apart from Gateway, where everything went kind of, everything went to pop very quickly, and they were all kind of leading at that point. It's never been issues where they're running in the top 3. It's always been they've been running further down the order because something probably more self-inflicted has already gone wrong. But it's amazing the range of stuff that has gone wrong. Like we've had tyre failures, hybrid issues, overheating, McLaughlin and thermal, obviously. We've had so many occasions where it's felt like they've just been caught up in incidents, and it's crazy just the amount of issues that we are seeing, though. Like the diverse range. We've had tyre failures, hybrids overheating, engine issues, this seeming brake weirdness for Newgarden in this race. We've had them being caught up in incidents. It's just been everything. I mean, what was Newgarden at the 500? There's so many things I can't even remember. I mean, feels like we've had a few occasions where there have been fueling issues and just such a range. I would like to just focus on Newgarden for a little bit, because he is obviously the most dramatic case of, I mean, the consequence of all of this being down in 19th in points is just, I mean, we've said it so many times, but this is a guy who was just on this, I mean, this painful run of finishing second in 3 successive seasons after his 2 championships in 3 years. And I just don't know what's gone wrong. And I mean, it's interesting this weekend, like qualifying was fine margins. He was 9th in his group, but he was a matter of hundredths from transferring. It was so tight. The race start, again, I mean, we're going to have to endeavour to find out really whether that was an issue out of his control, whether that was an error. But I mean, that was immediate. The start could not have gone worse. And I know he was caught up in a pretty big talking point this weekend after his qualifying. It was not for the first time. He declined an interview again. It's been like, but I think Detroit, maybe they said the last time he'd done an interview. Before that, he did, to be fair to him, speak after his crash in the race. But I mean, it's just a bad look, I think, when a guy who's been sold as the face of the series, you know, such an advocate for this whole Fox project, doesn't speak to TV. I mean, I like Newgarden. He seems like a really good, genuine guy. But I mean, Kevin Lee requested twice. He said, you know, you're up for a chat. You could hear it on the broadcast. And Newgarden didn't even acknowledge him, which I thought was a bit rude. Like, even if it's just a word or two, like, just say whatever. Just get out of the questions, whatever. Just speak, though. And it just feels like he does it when convenient, whereas you have a lot of other angry drivers doing interviews pretty much all the time. But I mean, there's the flip side, and I totally get, like, no driver has they don't have to speak. There's not a God-given right to speak to TV, but fans want to hear from him. And I feel like that's kind of part of the driver's duty. Like, I understand it after Gateway, he's just had a massive accident. But then you have, like, Road America. Didn't he storm off after qualifying 7th? Like, come on. Like, I feel like, you know, I know adrenaline's running high, emotions flowing, but I don't know. Like, it just feels slightly weird, and it's been very mysterious why, you know, Newgarden's been so bad on pace and what's been going wrong. And part of the mystery is because we never hear him justify anything, really. I mean, pressure on for Iowa. This has been Newgarden's home away from home. Massive chance to bounce back, but I mean, will he? I just think something's going to go wrong, because that just seems to be what's happening. Like, he's 14 races without a win now, Newgarden, and Nathan Brown tweeted that the only longer run in Newgarden's career was 15 between his 2nd and 3rd wins. I mean, it's madness. What do you think about the whole declining interviews thing? Because I know that was a big talking point.
I feel like you can get away with it a couple of times if you're frustrated, but doing it time and time again. And I get it's going through a bad time, but it's not like the media. They're not long interviews. They're not taxing on him. And I appreciate he wants to get away. He probably doesn't want to see people, because Newgarden seems a bit of an introverted person from the outside looking in. And I get why he does it, but at the same time, he is the face of the series, and a lot of people look up to him, and a lot of people want to hear from him, because he's multiple-time champion, he's multiple-time Indy 500 champion, and his reputation isn't being helped by his run of form, and his reputation is not going to be helped further by declining interviews, because people do want to hear from him. And I feel like maybe one of the best things he could do is just say, look, it's been a difficult time with Penske. I'm not driving as well as I could, but we need to fix it. You know, staying positive, looking forward. It feels like he's in a bit of a doom and gloom, and it feels like he's really in a downward spiral. And you feel like it's been going on for a couple of years now, really. He had that 2023 season, which was a bit of a write-off. It was a bit messy in times. Okay, it's a one-off season. He'll be back. 2024, pretty disastrous year outside the Indy 500. Not really any consistency and no run of form. Okay, we know that was a really, really bad season. 2025, new season, fresh start. I can turn it around. It seems to like we've been having a fresh start every single season, but nothing's changing. It's only getting worse, if anything. So, again, I've said this a couple of times. I don't think I said it on camera, but does new guy need to change the scenery? I mean, he's under contract at Penske, and staying at Penske obviously makes sense. But when you're having such not a bad run of form, but several seasons bad run of form, what needs to change for Newgard? And when you have a season like this, it feels pretty incomprehensible that it's going to turn up next year and suddenly become a championship contender again. So,
yeah, I mean, he's stuck in a rut. Like, I don't know. You can't say for sure whether Penske is the problem and whether things have gone stale there, what have you. But you're right. Like, ever since 22, and I don't know, maybe all the near misses and runner-up finishes took a toll. I'm not sure. But it's since then, like, you're right. He's just been a major, major downwards trajectory. And just he looks a shadow of that old self, really. And it is, like, is that word again? It's a mystery. Like, I'm not sure what's gone so wrong. Does Newgarden know?
But the thing is, there's accountability of Penske. Of course there is this season. But when it's going over such an extended stretch, well, that can't lie all on Penske. And I think it raises a more general question where Newgarden's seat is so secure. And so is McLaughlin's, and you can see why. But his power, he's the top Penske in the standings and probably has been the best Penske across the course of the year. And he's the one that's trying to get out the block. And that's the other side of it. Is hang on, Power got unlucky and he hasn't had a fantastic season, but was he the one on the chopping block?
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, it's the brutality, isn't it, of the whole contract situation. I must actually add that Penske's leadership team has now been sorted. Jonathan Duguid has been promoted to team president and Travis Law, the competition director. So, I mean, it seemed like that was something that was going to happen maybe after the season. They'd just have interims for the time being because, Power had said that his future was going to be decided probably after the season. But now that they've got these people in place, get a bit more stability for the remainder of the season, could it be a case of that decision being brought forward? Because it's not helpful for anyone. It's not helpful for Power, for Malukas, for Penske, not knowing at this point what the future is going to hold.
It's the chopping. It's the waiting point in the driving market. Everybody's waiting for this domino to fall, really, aren't they? So
yeah, no, you're right. I mean, it's come on. There's not many seats free, but it's causing this really abnormally late driving market. I mean, it feels like stuff is usually in full flow by this point, really, by the time you get to that mid-season point. But this is just the big cork in the bottle, really.
Yeah, we'll leave Penske there because I actually think we could do probably about 3-hour podcast on this, the mystery of Penske in 2025. And put it this way, if we're doing a segment on Penske's weekly disaster next week, that really is a concern. But you feel like Iowa's going to be their last chance to really, really turn their season. I say right, they're not going to turn their season around, whatever, but it's their last chance to really get some momentum, which they can continue for the rest of the year. So, I
mean, that's what now we're 11 races without a Penske win, 11 races without a Chevy win. If they don't win either Iowa, that's 13. You're 2 races off the 15 race winless run they had in 07-08, which is the next worst to the one that they're on at the moment in the last couple of decades. So, yeah, worrying times.
Let's move on to the final podium sitter, who was Christian Lundgaard. And we've spoken in recent weeks about how Lundgaard's form's tailed off a little bit. But this was a return to the start of the form we saw very early on in the season from Christian Lundgaard, which is great to see. And he continues to really prove himself as one of the best road course racers in the series. And, he obviously Palou is by far and away the best road course racer in the series. But Lundgaard is definitely a contender to be sort of in that second, third bracket there. So, obviously qualified second behind Palou. I don't think anybody's going to catch him, but Lundgaard's pace was once again excellent. Obviously, nobody was going to catch the runaway Palou, but Lundgaard really was impressive once again. He took his 4th podium of the season, his rookie year, Aaron McLaren, which is probably about the same as Rossi, Rose, and Kristick combined in their years at Aaron McLaren. Lundgaard continues to prove why a change of scenery was absolutely necessary. So, a really good weekend all round for Lundgaard. Obviously, wasn't too far off. Or Dixon was closing similarly. Dixon pulled away a little bit towards the end, but superb weekend once again for Christian Lundgaard, and continues to prove why Aaron McLaren signed him, particularly as a road course racer.
It's amazing that I mean, he's achieved more podiums in 10 races than Rossi did in his 2 years and Rosenqvist in 3 years, which is, yeah, I mean, I don't think we can really understate how impressive that's been, because there hasn't been a guy who has brought the fight to O'Ward anywhere near this consistently. And yeah, I know obviously he had the tail off in form, but I mean, it did feel like that was only going to be temporary. I think obviously we discussed this, and the oval, 4 of the remaining 7 races now are on ovals, and that's going to be pretty telling, because that's where the biggest question mark is, I think, for Lundgaard at the moment. Qualifying's been really impressive for him all year, really got himself back on the front row, and even after he lost out to Simpson at race start, he quickly got back in front of him, and didn't panic. I mean, I love how just calm, composed Lundgaard always is. It is Palou-like in a way, and yeah, just a return to that form of the start of the season, really. It was just a very, very solid podium day.
More on the point, it's a really good weekend all round, actually, for Aaron McLaren. Nolan Siegel could argue the best weekend of his IndyCar career, qualified for the Fast Six for the second time this season. His best ever qualifying result in 4th, obviously like Simpson did as well, and actually drove pretty well in the race. He was in the round of the top 10, finished 11th, which I don't think was very deserved of his actual performance. We had a look at the strategy, and it seemed slightly odd. They pitted with 8 laps to go, but didn't really seem like they were.
Well, yeah, because I think they did like 24 laps on used alternates, and then put on new alternates with about 9 to go. So I'm not sure. I don't know what happened there, to be honest.
So yeah, that was a bit of a strange one. Anyway, whatever strategy they won, didn't quite work out. Obviously, he's got Carl Moyer, understand now, the the Penske team manager as well. Obviously, as we mentioned a couple of weeks ago. So signs of improvement again for Siegel. I don't think the result really justifies how well he ran this weekend. But again, encouragement, I think, which is important, because he has come under some flack in recent weeks, but he backs up with a good weekend. And we'll really round out and pass to O'Ward. And O'Ward finished 5th in the end, and he said he had a really, really fast race car. He went on quite an aggressive strategy, pitted quite early, and he would have finished 4th, but he had a monster fuel save at the end, which meant he had to relinquish his position to Herta. So I was having a bit of a problem where he's not qualifying particularly well on road courses.
I just interject there. I mean, we obviously saw the pole at Thurman, and that was where he felt like he'd finally got to grips with the hybrid for the first time, really, since its debut at Mid-Ohio last year. But it's kind of cycling back to what he was saying. The issues had been in qualifying at that point, and clearly Thermal seems to have been an anomaly, that he just can't live on the ragged edge and drive it as he likes to and as he used to, with that real aggression and having the car moving about and saving it and fighting it. And that was how he got the speed. With the hybrid, he just can't really do that, because the car's cumbersome and it plows like a pig, as Pato seems to have said on multiple occasions, whatever the hell that means. But yeah, you're right. He's having issues in qualifying. I feel like he's recovering from them pretty well on a fairly frequent basis, which is why he's not too bad.
It's ironic I say that, because before this, he's actually qualifying the fast 12 every single time. But he's not at road courses. He's not qualifying at he said this 3 weeks ago. He's not progressing to the fast 6. Yeah,
but that's the point. Like, we're used to seeing him at the pointy end, and he's not at the pointy end, is he, really? But I mean, he's still 3rd in the standings, and that owes to, even when he has qualified not as well as you would expect from him, that he's progressing in the race, I feel like, on a fairly frequent basis.
We'll go through the running order. It feels a lot more earlier than we usually do this, but there wasn't really loads of talking points in this race. It was interesting, but there wasn't tons and tons of talking points. So Dixon was victorious ahead of Palou and Lundgaard rounding out your podium. Colton Herta finished 4th in the end, which not a bad result for Herta. Quite a quiet weekend, despite finishing 4th. And we still needed a good weekend. I mean, we said this last week, I think, but Kirkwood starting to get the upper hand on Herta. And this was the weekend that Herta needs, and the weekends we were seeing of him last year, where they're executing at quite a good level. And it was good to see Herta sort of have a nice, smooth weekend where he took home a good result, despite not having absurd amounts of pace.
He did have a minor accident, actually, in opening practice, backed it in. So it wasn't all smooth. Like,
everyone had an incident in opening
that's
practice,
the thing.
let's be honest.
Really difficult. It did look really difficult. But I mean, when I looked at the results before I actually did managed to catch up on the race. I kind of look at it as he's qualified 5th, he's finished 4th. Finally, they've kind of put everything together, they've executed, and they did for the most part, like, which is it definitely in the minority for the season. But even then, on the final stop, they had a really slow, they had a bit of a bobble on the front left, and I think he was probably too far behind Lundgaard for it to really count for anything. But we're still seeing these little blunders, and okay, it was inconsequential on this occasion. They didn't do anything major, but I still think there's refinement to go there.
But then we had O'Ward in 5th, Rosenqvist in 6th, who was the next car on the 2-stopper, ahead of Armstrong 7th. Meyer continued to randomly bring home top 10s, completely unexplained, but we said this last week, they're executing on a very good level where these results are no longer a surprise, that they're bringing home double top 10s every week. So credit there to Meyer Racing once again, showing very, very well.
I'm so impressed with just how buttoned up, how well oiled that team kind of looks. I mean, they are now fighting very solidly on 2 fronts, which is such a turnaround from obviously 23 was awful, and even last year, like obviously with everything that happened with Blomqvist at the start of the year, and that they didn't really get going on the second car until Lucas came in around the mid-season points. And I felt like the issue last year, obviously they had some blips, some really out of their control, but they did have some blips on Rosenqvist's car back end of last year. Even with Malukas, like he was really quick but lacked the race results. But that scruffiness really feels like it's been eradicated this year. And the Ganassi input has to have helped, like especially with Armstrong having that continuity. But make no mistake that this is mostly down to Meyer Racing, I feel. Like we saw such a turnaround, such strength last year with Andretti that it would be unfair to say, oh, well, they've got an alliance with Ganassi. That's obviously why they're performing as they are. Like I feel like the transition would not have been so seamless if this team did not have the quality within their own ranks as well.
We then move on to Carl Kirkwood in 8th. Bit of a weird one, I think, for Carl Kirkwood. Continues to execute and bring home top 10s on a more regular basis, which is what we want to see. But he didn't really feel anywhere, really, across the weekend. It was just a very mediocre weekend for Kirkwood. Still bringing home an 8th place is pretty decent, but we just know Kirkwood can do better, and I think that's the main thing of it. We've seen him do so much better, and road courses aren't quite his speciality yet. Still got some work to do there. He's never podiumed at road course, has he? So yeah, that's actually so.
Yeah, just didn't have the pace. He never really seemed like he had the like he was in a decent position, but he was never in a great position. It felt like. I thought Road America felt like a real. I don't know, doesn't feel like the right word, but it's the first one that came to my head was a real kind of epiphany on a road course. And yeah, I mean, obviously still didn't even get a podium there. So yeah, a little bit to find. Like he's an oval guy now, apparently, as well as a street course guy. So if he becomes a road course guy, that's when we can really call him.
Guy, yeah, is he?
Let's see after Iowa. So we'll circle back to this.
9th place, Rinus VK, the 2-stopper. Pulled off once again. Another top 10 for your beloved. He's in a very good run of form. Very good run of form with VK. So props to him again. I'll keep it short, Archie. We've got other stuff to discuss. So
yeah, I mean, it feels like a classic VK weekend for the season. I mean, it feels like that Coyne's qualifying car hasn't always been brilliant. I know he's obviously had some headline qualifying results, but I mean, he started down in 26th there. Obviously, Abel was a position back. And on Abel's side, like, he was running mid-pack at points in that race, ultimately finished the last car on the lead lap, and disappointing, but some glimmers. But I feel like on his
side... Hey, you did have a
side,
random issue this week.
Yeah, that's good. I feel like on his side, like, I don't know, since the engineering change, obviously I feel like Detroit was really positive and we've not seen masses, but yeah, he has had so many random issues. But yeah, back to VK. I mean, it was just that race of kind of methodical progress again. That word that I feel like is used so often in IndyCar, just executing, and just finds himself in the top 10. If he executes, he finds himself in the top 10. He's got that sort of pace, and Coyne have kind of regained that speed this year. I mean, after 10 races, he has more points than either Dale Coyne entry had last year in the entire course of the season, which is pretty impressive. He's now officially ahead of both Ed Carpenter racing cars, 13th in points, which I feel like is pretty funny. But no, I mean, he just continues to be so impressive given how poor that team were last year. I mean, chapeau
You kept that short. Good job.
I've become a broken record.
Copy and paste the same segment every week.
It shows what good season he's having. That he's having this consistent level.
You do love the good stat against last year. I mean, last year was.
But I think it just emphasises it, doesn't it? That they finished no better than 30.
In fairness, well, I'm not taking this away from VK. VK's having an excellent season, but last year the 51 car was a complete and utter write-off of how many people were driving it. And then I don't think Harvey's not been himself for a couple of seasons now, is he? So.
But at the same time, like, I think the fact that those two cars were not even close to making the leaders circle, and here we are talking about VK being on the brink of the top 10, like, you've got to give a whole load of credit to him for that, because it's seriously impressive.
Given Simpson rounded out your top 10 ahead of Nolan Siegel, Marcus Ericsson was 12th. And it feels a bit sad to say this was actually a better weekend for Ericsson. I mean, he qualified pretty decently in 10th, made the fast 12. Still the slowest of the three Andretti's, but hey, he's made the fast 12. But yeah, I mean, 12th place is okay, which is a bit sad, really, isn't it? But it must be his best result in a long time. It's his best result since Long Beach. So,
yeah, I mean, obviously the 500.
Yeah.
Being the 500, but didn't keep that result, so I guess we can't really count it. I mean, I feel like we see Ericsson have a lot more incidents than we did in his Ganassi days. I feel like he was always just so clean. Even second practice, he had a pretty big off, and I feel like in his Ganassi days, that's not something we ever saw. Like, he's just become a bit rough around the edges, and I mean, he's had a personnel change on his stand in terms of his lead engineer, which I mean, it doesn't bode too well. I think it just shows a bit of alarm, pressing the panic button a little bit. The race, like, when he doesn't have a terrible day, he has an anonymous day. He's not anywhere near his teammates, and he's not inside the top 10. And that's become a standard Ericsson day when it's either standard low top 10, just outside the top 10, or disaster. There's nothing really that much better. And that's bad. Like, that's like... an incredible dance. And as I say,
Dennis Hauger wins again in Indy next. I mean, like, I don't think there's a single justification where Ericsson should keep that seat. I mean, he hasn't got a top. I know the Indy 500 adds a bit of a caveat to it. He hasn't had a top 10 since St. Petersburg.
But like, how do you spell it out? Like, I know it's the third time I've said it now, but 20th in points. Like, that's like the level we were seeing from the fourth Andretti car with Devlin DiFrancesco, and now they're a 3-car team.
And that's Devlin DiFrancesco, not Marcus Ericsson. It's an Indy 500 winner. Exactly. DiFrancesco hasn't got top 10 in his career.
He's 14 positions lower in points than where he finished 3 successive years with Ganassi, when he was this just... Like, we literally coined the term Marcus Ericsson Day when he was just so regularly just inside that mid-part upper top 10. Like, I feel so distant now.
Callum Milot was 13th ahead of Louis Foster in 14th.
Great day for Ilott, by the way. That's very strong.
Prema.
Yeah. That's very strong for Prema.
And then Louis, as we said, if you didn't catch our episode with him last week, check it out. His thoughts on his main IndyCar pole position, obviously, a bit about his gateway crash as well. So it's definitely worth a listen if you've got a little bit of time. It's not too long. So after this, check out that episode of Louis. Qualified once again very well in 6th, which is, I mean, his record on road courses qualifying this season is absolutely stupendous. I mean, he's now down to 3rd in the average table. Which is
is he?
But yeah, Lundgaard's got him now.
But like, still, as a rookie, he's 5 from 5 in terms of making the fast 12 in road course qualifying in his rookie year. Like, that's bulletproof.
And 3 from 5 in the fast 6. It's not like
three in succession now. So I think he was on Use Reds again. He couldn't make it work this time like he did at Road America, but he's still pretty good. Like, I mean, if you listen to the Louis episode, we also had a soundbite from Bobby and Graham Rahal on the state of the team, and the big thing was execution on a race day and pace on a race day. And same issues really here, like a rapid fast car in qualifying, apart from Rahal, who was frustrated with his qualifying. Well, DiFrancesco as well, but Rahal was obviously on a pretty good run in qualifying. And yeah, I mean, I think he just said that he didn't execute, and he was pretty annoyed there. And then he ended up in the gravel and at the start of the race, and with the whole New Garden issue, and Di Francesco actually had contact with Iowa and had front wing damage at the start of the race as well. So that was a bit of a disaster. Yeah, I mean, Foster, it was kind of the same story again. I feel like he held on to his position pretty nicely in the opening exchanges of the race, but just kind of dropped through the pit sequences and, yeah, just, again, didn't really seem to have the pace. It's just a same story for RLM races. They just fade a bit, don't they?
And we had Alexander Rossi in 15th, Santino Ferrucci in 16th, who got a penalty. I think forcing Conor Daly off the track might be an understatement. It was a bizarre attempt at defending your position. To say he ran Daly out of room would be kind to Ferrucci. He picked up a very deserved penalty for that. I think it was a yield-free positions penalty. For things like that, I don't like the yield-free positions penalty. I feel like it's not enough. I get it if you for blocking or something or for a marginal thing, but I mean, Ferrucci screwed himself over because he drove Daly so far off the track that he ended up going off the track himself, which was just complete lunacy, to be quite honest. So I guess in that he penalised himself because he lost positions already there. But I mean, he's just there's no intention of making the corner. There's a profound amount of space on the inside because he's driven him that far off the road. I mean, I'll just read out Daly's tweet word for word after the race. This clown literally drove himself off track trying to make sure he wrecked me. At Santino Ferrucci, brilliant as always. And I feel I don't know, I mean, on the Daly point, I mean, he qualified 13th, which was a massive upturn for, that was their best Juncos-Hollinger racing on a road course this year. And they'd really struggled at Road America. So that was a big upturn. But yeah, this little contretemps kind of screwed Daly's race a bit and kind of prevented any result there. But I mean, it just contrasts this kind of more polished Ferrucci that feels like we'd seen in recent rounds. He had the incident in practice as well, didn't he? Where he
exactly. So I mean, the Road America podium, he literally said I wasn't my usual self. I kind of took it. I was calm. I was measured. I thought, oh my word, we're seeing a mature Ferrucci, a new Ferrucci. But this is just going back to the days of the stupid unnecessary beef with Grosjean, and I don't know what we didn't see that Daly did anything to him beforehand, so maybe it was retaliatory. But even if it was it was just stupid because he screwed himself over. And if you don't see Palou or Dixon doing that, maybe they'll get run off the road. But you don't see them then going and running someone even more off the road like that. Nothing major enough happened caused by Daly, if it did happen at all, that we saw it on the broadcast. Yeah, and then obviously we saw the practice move as well, which, I mean, there were cars essentially stopped about to start laps and he decided he was going to overtake them all and almost rammed Newgarden. Even Townsend Bell was angry at Ferrucci for that, and that is saying
Although
something.
I do think there's a point where I don't like this habit of people on the racing line waiting for their fast laps.
No, I agree.
Not defending what Ferrucci did, but Newgarden and co are a bit...
Was Ferrucci on a lap or not? Or was he just trying to start a lap? That made it
That's silly, yeah.
But for just to kind of round that off, for the incident happening in the race, I like that they have the variable penalties and you can give the yield-free position or whatever. He's just completely... I know he's not crashed Daly out, but he's ruined his race. There's got to be more of a penalty. That's got to be a drive-through penalty at least, I feel. If it's something I feel like race director should have it should be at their discretion, looking on the severity of the consequence of the action, the scale of it.
Not consequence though, isn't it?
It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. Yeah, it's offense, not, but the offense here was bad. He's
of course.
But so maybe you're probably right there. But I don't know if Daly's ended up out of the race because of something like that, I mean, you've got to think that's got to be a more severe penalty in 3
When we say offense, not consequence, but there's always consequence, isn't it?
There's always consequence. That's the thing. But I think in some cases, consequence has to be looked at. If that's done on a street course, for instance, and the driver ends about the race, you're not just going to say okay, you've ended his race, yield 3 positions. That's got to be more than that.
Malukas finished behind his teammate at 17th, ahead of the two Juncoses of Rob and Daly, with Devin Di Francesco rounding out your top 20.
Extending what we were saying about Ferrucci and Malukas, that was not a great weekend for them. I mean, Malukas had a crash in was it opening practice? I think Malukas had his incident.
Yes, yes, it was.
Not massive, but rear damage. Had to get out of the car. I couldn't continue in the session. So yeah, back to what we saw from them at the start of the season. I feel like 16th, 17th was the ballpark that we were seeing them in before this kind of post-May flurry. So yeah, not really sure why they struggled so much this weekend. I always look at Road America, Mid-Ohio as being, they're not really that similar tracks, are they? Road America's got such high speed. It's just because they always form next to each other on next bar one that they kind of just merge together a bit. And I always just get so confused by this point in the season. Yeah, not as good a weekend for Foyt compared to what we had seen in recent rounds.
Then we had Schwartz from 21st, Abel 22nd, McLaughlin, Rahal, Rasmussen, who obviously had an engine failure. Qualified quite well again, though, followed by Power and Newgard.
We haven't really touched on Rasmussen obviously causing that second caution. He ran out of fuel. I think it was a short fill, and that can either be a failure or human error, so not sure what that was. You've got to think they've got to be aware of how much fuel is in the car. I mean, if they short fill, maybe not, but I don't know whether there's a way to really read how much fuel. There's got to be a way to read how much fuel you've got in the car. So you've got to assume there's been some sort of miscalculation or just some sort of issue there. But I think they got him back out into the race. So yeah, unsure. That's not ideal, really, because yes, as we say, they qualified really well, and opposite of what happened in Road America, really just tumbled in the race.
Top 3 drivers of the weekend. I'm going to go for a really bizarre one this week and not include the race winner.
Wow.
That
okay.
happened many times.
I need to have a think because I've not had a think yet.
Maybe it's Simpson in third, Lundgaard in second, and Palou in first.
Yeah, it's one of those hard ones. It's like you don't know how much to actually weigh the error that ultimately Dixon, even if it wasn't for Palou's error, he's still driven to second. I feel like Dixon and Palou, I feel like Dixon and Palou have got to be there, and I'm impressed with Simpson. I feel like still finished 10th after the issues he had in the race and to have qualified third compared to what people really have expected from him. I think just as a marker of his development this year. Yeah, I'll stick to my guns. Simpson first. I don't know what order to put the other two in, to be honest. I think I will put Dixon second, Palou third, just weighing Palou's error more heavily.
So Ganassi 1, 2, 3 for you.
Yeah, because I feel like that could have been what would have happened in the race if Simpson didn't have his issues.
Yeah. Unsung hero, I've got a feeling I don't need to ask.
Am I allowed to pick VK?
It's not really unsung for you anymore, is he?
Yeah, it is VK, isn't it? But yeah, it's VK.
I'm going to go Colin Herta. Played well.
Yeah.
But not many. Not as fourth as a quite.
Yeah, honourable mention Nolan Siegel. He was the other one I was considering.
I feel like he had a good weekend and people recognise he had a good weekend.
Yeah, that's also fair. At what stage do people start recognising VK? I feel like he just still goes under the radar.
Yeah, he does. I don't know.
But he's going under the radar. But I think there's only 2 races he's actually finished this year that he's not been in the top 10, which is pretty mad.
Because he always just spawns into lower end of the top 10. And then
good skill.
Say how he's got there. It's like the Armstrong ability. You just spawn in somewhere. No one quite knows how, but
the Armstrong ability. I like that.
So yeah, that's what. You've phrased the podcast the Armstrong ability, where he just spawns into a position nobody quite knows how, but
it's the new Marcus Ericsson Day, the Armstrong ability.
Yeah.
That needs to be the episode title, the Armstrong ability.
Funny moments of the weekend is a lot. I know we touched on this in Barber, but the Honda coming back out, as well as the Fox Sports livery on Ericsson was a bit of a bizarre one. I'm not like. When has ever a television network sponsored a driver racing in that race? And why Marcus Ericsson?
Yeah, a lot of questions, right? I don't know. Like Palou's livery, by the way, was interesting. It was like villainous, like just a black open AI primary sponsorship. Also a funny thing. Rasmussen's car had the US flag on for July 4th, but Rossi's didn't. The Dane had it, but the American didn't.
Yeah, that was weird.
Also, the big robot man that was hanging around with Ericsson, some Fox mascot, evidently Cletus. But I think the crown for me, and it's kind of, I feel like it happened so early in the weekend, it's kind of got a bit lost. But Will Power's anger at Álex Palou. He was absolutely raging at him after the first. Well, it was second practice, so it wasn't that early in the weekend, was it? But he was absolutely raging because I think twice he'd come out of the pits and Palou was in front of him, and he felt that Palou was like going slow for like 4 laps in a row and wasn't letting him pass. But I don't feel like Palou was just doing 4 slow like warm-up laps. He must have been doing just a race simulation. He's not just gonna let him pass. Like, just don't like. Ultimately, I feel like Penske just don't let Power out behind Palou. That's like, it's not.
Well, you haven't seen the part 2, have you?
Or was it? Am I getting this wrong? Or was it that Palou was being sent out in front of Power? Actually, I think that might have been the situation. Actually,
whatever it was. Well, you haven't seen the second part to the story, have you?
What was the second part?
So on Sunday, Power went around the back of Palou's box and like air punched him. So he just started going like that in front of Palou, around the back of the garage. Yeah, you need to find the clip. It's absolutely hilarious.
Amazing.
And Palou took it very well.
But that's the thing, because like I think the funniest part about it was it's just so unfazed. Like, I feel like he's just the most conflict-averse person you could possibly get.
But
Power's doing this, and he's just looking at him, like, smiling, and then Power goes away, and he's just... I think Palou says to Barry Wanzo, why is he not angry at you? Which I think, again, wider point speaks to the camaraderie on the 10 crew, that they could just have a bit of a joke and a laugh like that. But I think, yeah, it's good that Power kind of did see the light side of it. I didn't see that, but that's got to be the funny moment.
Search it up now or side waffle. But... the other side of it is, I said to you, I don't think I've ever seen Palou get in an argument with anybody. This was so weird.
I don't think he even got in an argument. He just didn't entertain it.
He got into conflict with somebody. Maybe a better way of putting it. The other funny thing, I don't know if you saw this as well, but this Cletus guy was on one of the shows of Buxton, Townsend, and Hinch, and they asked him to do a Joseph Newgarden impression, and he just turned around and walked off, which I thought was absolutely hilarious.
Oh, that's amazing.
Possibly, yeah. It was all
so that's why I watch warm up, Dan. Don't want to miss moments like that. It's so good. It's actually so good because the way you like just the little shake of the head as well is amazing.
Okay, podium predictor tournament. Not a great result this week, actually, all round. Pretty difficult one. A lot of people predicted Palou to win. The top scorer was Morgan, who actually predicted Lundgaard, Palou, and O'Ward. So that was a good shout. Now, pretty much everybody else got 2 because they predicted Palou first. Apart from James, who predicted Palou third, so he also got 2. So everybody predicting Palou. I mean, 4 people predicted Palou first, so automatically got 2 points. And then Ivan predicted him third, so he also got 2 points. So everybody got 2 points apart from Morgan this week. So it doesn't change much to the standings, does it? It's not very exciting.
Sorry, listeners, viewers.
We'll try again next week. Anyway, we have the Fast 6 predictor tournament. I went for Palou. Excellent start. McLaughlin, not so great. Herta, O'Ward, Newgarden, and Malukas. So 2 for me.
I went for Palou, who did make it. Herta, who also made it.
Yep.
Kirkwood, who did not make it. McLaughlin, who did not make it. Rosenqvist, who did not make it. And Rossi, who did not make it but made the Fast 12.
Well, that doesn't count for anything, does it?
No, but at least he made the Fast 12. It could have gone worse.
So that's 2 points each for both Palou and Hurton. We'll quickly touch on Iowa Speedway as we head to doubleheader next week. We have got some insight for drivers because there was a test there last week. Was it topped by Daly? And I think it was.
Daly was quickest, yes.
The feedback from the drivers doesn't bode very well. Let's just say it doesn't seem like the track's changed much since the disaster that was last year.
I think they basically just brought a new package, shoved a load of downforce on, and they were talking about this on Off Track with Hinch and Rossi, that basically it's just like called painting the white line, where there's so much downforce that basically they can just the cars will just run the shortest distance. They'll just basically run down on the white line, and that's the quickest way around the track, which is obviously not what you often see on an oval.
They need to change that before next week, really.
But I can't remember what they said about the package, but it's pretty late to go changing the package. You've just got to hope somehow there's major degradation. But I think because of the amount of downforce, it's going to be really physical. That's one of the things the drivers are saying. It's going to be brutal physically because this is at the best of times a physical oval. You've got 2 races. It's going to be pretty brutal. It's going to be a race of survival, really. But yeah, the consensus is that change is made, done nothing. It's going to be the same as last year, where everyone just runs the low line, and because it's so slow at the top, no one's going to be able to pass.
I hope we have 1 day straight of highline sessions. Get there Thursday, and just everybody has to run the highline all day.
But I don't know whether it's just an issue with the package, though, that it just simply
Well,
won't
it's an
be
issue
quicker.
with the pack. Well, the issue with the package has been caused because of the issue with the track.
Yeah, and that is NASCAR's fault.
It is. I mean, the highline, nobody's going to go up there, and we can run highline sessions, but the track isn't going to get any better. Which is just so disappointing to double header because you've got to put up with this twice.
It's awful because like last year's race, like the thing that Iowa was just so good because like the crazy, beautiful, amazing chaos of it all. It was like just an absolute frenzy. The Iowa weekend was my favorite of the year. Last year,
the Indy 500.
Yeah, bar the 500 obviously, but that's kind of a fortnight rather than a weekend. So, but no, honestly, like last year, lap traffic didn't even become a factor because cars couldn't pass. Because like even if you caught up to them though, like everyone was just running the same pace because like you catch up to lap traffic, can't get past, but it's not an issue because whoever's behind you can't get past either. So it's like I think we're just gonna have to preemptively title it the Great Iowa Procession again, the episode like we did last year. I really hope I'm just being ultra pessimistic, but hey, have a really low bar, and
let's rewatch the race last year this week because it won't get any worse than that. Surely, it's horrendous last year.
It can
so bad. Well, the only action was on restarts, wasn't it? Where people were just having to make ridiculous overtakes.
Well, this is the thing. It could become a bit messy if people are just like. Obviously, we know that people are now in this mode where they're just taking risks to try and beat Palou.
If Palou wins in Iowa,
well, whoever gets pole, as long as they don't have a failure or like, it's going to come down to pits. It's going to come down to pit stops. It's going to come down to keeping it clean and pit stops. That's going to be the name of the game, and that's not particularly fun.
No. So, yeah, I mean, let's hope it's better. I mean, it can't be much worse than last year.
Tune in, everyone. Watch Iowa. It's going to be great. Don't listen to
25 more laps this year in both races, just to make it even more exciting. Another 10 minutes.
We'll just have a really low bar, so anything
good we'll be excited about.
Even moderately not so bad is good.
Yeah. Well, we do have... I say fast six, a top six in qualifying to predict. How are we doing this? One for both, or are we gonna look for two different ones?
I think we do. Last year, I think we did the same for both, didn't we? It's probably easier.
That's so much easier. I take it we've all gone for all the Penske's.
Yeah,
we're not gonna faff around wasting our time. Yeah, cool.
Yep,
Fly one in there.
Malukas.
Yes, I've gone for Malukas. So basically quadruple Penske. Effectively.
Daily?
No. I had a feeling he'd go for Daily. He doesn't qualify very well, I know, with most. I thought he did get pole at Iowa, didn't he?
I feel like this is. I mean, if he's going to win the race, like I said, he's going to have to qualify well.
Yeah, exactly.
And even he might not be able to run the high line. I need to stop being so negative, but it's hard.
I've gone O'Ward.
I've gone O'Ward as well.
You're fine. And then I've ended up with Rosenquist. So
okay, interesting. I forgot this was the race that Herta had an absolute blind last year at qualifying.
Was this the one where he had that really weird thing where he had to abort his lap for an issue of the hybrid, even though that was a weird one.
I can't actually remember what the situation was, but it was some hybrid.
I think his hybrid didn't deploy, and in the IndyCar, instead of saying, "Okay, well, you can run again," he had to write his 2 laps.
I think you're right. Like he could have run again because he was pole and fourth. He decided he wasn't going to risk it because he would have wiped his laps, which wasn't fair. I don't think we need to discuss that again. But
anyway, five of the same 6. So usual procedures are restored this week. It's been too long of us going ever so slightly apart.
Yeah. Now can everyone please just pray that it's pray for Iowa basically.
Yeah.
We've been negative, and I hate being negative, but the drivers have been negative, and we've just got to echo what they're saying because they're the ones who've tested it.
Okay, well, let's cheer you up. This episode is going out on Tuesday. However, this week we have a bonus episode. So that's going to cheer you up. It's got nothing to do with Iowa, so we'll wipe that away. But on Thursday, we have a guest back on the show who you'll wait until Thursday to find out who returns on the show. But really great chat once again. It's about 45 minutes, 50 minutes long, and it's well worth a listen if you've got a bit of time later on the week. It's a really interesting insight from this individual once again. So stay tuned. There probably will be some promo, so you'll probably find out.
Stay tuned to DIVEBOMB's socials. And if you've been attentive to Dan's Twitter, actually, you'll already know who this is.
Yes, that's a plug. Follow me on Twitter and you'll find out.
Dan needs followers.
I do. Said individual retweeted us actually, so there's probably a good chance the majority of this audience have already seen who this guest is. But hey, if you don't, follow me on Twitter and you'll find out who it is. If you don't want a surprise, wait until Thursday and it'll drop on Thursday and you'll go, whoa, they're back on the show. But anyway, we'll leave that very not cliffhanger there. On that not so bombshell, it's time to end. Thanks very much for watching. Thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.